Well, what do we say about that then? West Ham 2, Arsenal 5 at London Stadium. Don't know, really. Not sure. My name's Will Pugh. This is the We Are West Ham podcast. I'm sure most of you know that already. I'm joined by James Jones, who I always am on the We Are West Ham podcast. He's a very nice man. I'm a little bit annoyed at the moment because I put in a compensation claim, even though I didn't give him any money for his season ticket that he gave me, so I could go and represent the We Are West Ham podcast at London Stadium on Saturday night. Even though it was at free, I still feel like I should be due some money back from James. James, I don't really know what to say. Yet again on the We Are West Ham podcast, few people messaging last week saying it was nice for a bit of positivity after the Newcastle game. But I feel, in the interest of being genuine as well, you got to take it as it comes both ways. You didn't go to the game. You're out doing far more fun stuff. Woeful, terrible. I don't know. Do you want to pick the adjectives? I don't really know what to say. Yet again.
Well, yeah. I mean, well, I was in a pub. I was actually in a pool club. So we were playing pool. And they had the game on. So, and by then I was probably about 8 or 9 pints deep. So, I was watching it, but wasn't watching it, if you know what I mean. Like I knew it was there. And I was occasionally looking up, and then every time I looked up, another goal gone in, another goal. So yeah, I've had to kind of watch the highlights. Regrettably, that I've had to go back and watch it, just refresh my memory. Absolutely no way do you get any compensation for that. That was not in the T's and C's. And it just
I feel like everyone who bought a ticket for that should get compensated from the club.
Yeah. It just feels like, there was a glimmer of hope with the Newcastle win. Is that the performance and the win to spark a recovery under Lopetegui? And we said, it's more of a performance, less the result against Arsenal.
Yeah, we did, didn't we? Yeah.
In acknowledgement of the fact that, we could play really, really well against Arsenal, still lose, because annoyingly Arsenal are very good at the moment. And they will beat most teams.
Turns out it's a bit about the result.
Yeah, but then I just we didn't get either. We had glimpses of good play. There were a couple of moments, and the only bonus I took from it, and I said this to a guy I was with who was an Arsenal fan, who was the group I was with. I was like, we drew the second half, so I'll take that. so we don't get any points for that, but we drew the second half. But beyond that, there's not many positives other than the Aaron Wan-Bissaka thing. 2 in 2. He's literally doubled his career goal tally in the space of 5 days. Unbelievable! Can't believe it. The experiment is well and truly underway. It's well and truly working now.
Yeah, does that mean it's working after all, the Wan-Bissaka experiment? How stupid I feel for ever doubting the wisdom of Lopetegui. James, we can do that. We can do this thing on StreamYard where you insert a little bit of audio or video or whatever it is. Probably should have had a brief chat about this beforehand. Can you remember how to do it? Because if so, I want to insert I want to insert my audio, because I did one of them videos. I don't do them after every single game, but every now and then. Unfortunately, I seem to sort of be when we lose that I feel the inclination to do it. But I like to do a little just post-match reaction to my phone, and I did that as I was walking away from the London Stadium on Saturday. And bizarrely, I'll say it outright. People are just bored of me talking about David Moyes. So, or some people. I find it weird because a lot of people I speak to in person, particularly fans of other clubs, just go, "What were you doing?" So, look, anyone who's listening to this podcast is probably thinking, "Not again." So I'm not going to do it again on the podcast. I will play you the little bit of audio. Hang on, James. I'll tell you what you can do. This is clever. You can pause the recording. And James, as if by magic, after recording pause, technical geniuses that we are, here is my post-match reaction live from or near Westfield, actually, outside the London Stadium on Saturday night. If you've watched this already on social media, maybe skip forward a couple of minutes, but you might as well give it a listen again just to refresh your memory. Nothing can sum up more, really, what it's like to support West Ham at the moment. Absolutely pathetic. The stadium half full of gooners, running battles in the stands, Arsenal fans getting their head kicked in because they've been allowed to sit in the home end and buy tickets in the home end, with a club whose ownership who's bowed to fan pressure and got rid of the best manager a club's had in the modern era to replace him with what? Another half-assed, non-thought-out appointment a la Pellegrini, who doesn't fit the style. The players don't have a clue what they're doing. Anyone moaning about last season, compared to what we're seeing now, it's chalk and cheese. It's unbelievable. We ended the game, I mean, I can't even talk about conceding that many goals in the first half and the absolutely embarrassing shambles that was that first half performance. People will point to the game against Arsenal last season, but won't mention the away game. And the away game came from having a team who does the ugly stuff well and the unglamorous stuff well, playing players in positions they're used to playing in. We ended that game, Aaron Wan-Bissaka playing left back after yet another half of him playing as a right winger. It's unpalatable. It's unbelievable. And where on earth do we go from here? Where on earth do we go from here? It's easy to say Lopetegui out. Well, the majority of the, I mean, I don't know if that's the answer. But the answer is go back and don't make the horrendous mistake that was made over the summer by getting rid of David Moyes. It's absolutely unbelievable. I really don't know what to say. It's a shambles. It's a total shambles. Lopetegui has got no idea what he's doing. It's easy to point at the Newcastle game, and even the points we have picked up this season, probably by Man United, would have been expected. I'm not saying we expect to beat Arsenal at home by any means, and last season was also bad at home to Arsenal, but we beat them away. And as I've said, that's because the ugly stuff, which we don't do anymore. We don't do any of the stuff we used to do well last season. And I just don't understand. I don't know what the Lopetegui way is. It's ridiculous. The new players, I mean, Kilman and Todibo look okay. A lot of people around me saying how slow Kilman looks. I mean, the new Rodriguez, Soler. It's so disjointed and embarrassing. No one knows what they're doing. Like, we had a proper team of proper football players last season who were told to do normal football things in normal football positions, and 9 times out of 10 they bore results against teams whose budgets were smaller than ours. All Arsenal did today, look at all the set pieces they're doing. We had fans last season moaning about set pieces. It's unbelievable. And the club we've got now that we're expected to pay serious money to go and watch every week is unrecognisable from the one it was for the past few years. Well, there we go then, James. I'll be honest, I am bored. I'm bored of my own Moyes stuff, right? I get it. Like, it's boring. So I'm not going to go on about it anymore because people are just a bit bored of hearing the same thing, even if they agree. I would say I'm bored of feeling it. But yeah, I think the most, watching that back, a couple of bits, I was just like, oh God, here we go. Here he goes again. But the bit at the end, I think, Jonesy, was the unrecognisable bit, to be honest. That I was just sitting there, just like, what is this? Like, Arsenal fans everywhere. It's just not. The whole club is just unrecognisable. and I realise more and more how, I don't know, I'm sort of falling out of love with it. I think before like David Moyes come back, just all the stadium and the things people moan about, and that just summed it up on Saturday. I was like, what is this anymore? But just before we get into that and why I think anymore, people hear enough of that as it is. What did you think? Like hearing now, I don't know if you watched it over the weekend, but hearing it now, what's your general reaction?
Yeah, I mean, immediately when you brought back the whole Moyes thing, the answer is to go back. I'm not going to go into detail, but find that just a crazy thing to say. But I understand the frustration. I get it. Is the answer to sack him? I mean, I tweeted at 4-0, I think it was, sack him at half time. This is not acceptable. And that was what, 3 days
a
after.
9-pint tweet.
Yeah, 3 days after I'd written a column for the BBC saying this is it. It started. So yeah, I mean, it was a 9-pint tweet, but it was also, at the end of the day, I don't care like how disjointed things are or how whether it's a transitional period still and it's still trying to get messages through to your players and stuff like that. I don't care. I even don't care. The opposition is also irrelevant. You cannot concede 5 goals at home in the first half.
90 minutes, let alone.
Yeah,
45.
I mean, it shouldn't be happening. It shouldn't be happening. Like once in a blue. I mean, and that's twice now this season we conceded 5. There was a period, well, for maybe just under 4 years under the previous manager. Not going to say his name; people are bored of it. Over the last 3.5, 4 years, we were very difficult to beat, regardless of who the opposition was. Even the so-called top 6 really struggled to beat us. I mean, they did beat us. They weren't thrashing us for a period to the back end of last season. And that should be the norm for a team like us that has the resources that we have. We shouldn't be being thrashed by these teams. I can accept a defeat. Like, yeah, we lose that 2-0, maybe even 3-0. We go, all right, okay, well, Arsenal are a top side. So you take it on the chin. But to be 4-0 down within, 30 minutes or something, and then end up losing 5-2, it's not, for me, it's not acceptable. I don't care who the opposition is. I'd say the same if it was, I don't know, Real Madrid. I'd be like, it shouldn't be happening. Shouldn't be happening.
You just put 10 men behind the ball and try not to concede, isn't it? Is the answer.
Yeah, it's just like, look, like at 2-0, it should have been, right, let's sort this out. Let's revert back to, let's play defensive. And they just didn't. And, I know a lot of people are questioning the second penalty. But by then it's pointless. It's irrelevant, really. Like whether it is a penalty or it isn't a penalty, like it is what it is. Yeah, it's not good enough. And I understand. I agree with the majority of things you said there. It doesn't feel like the West Ham that we've adored and loved over the last 4 years. It doesn't feel like that. And I don't know what it takes beyond winning football matches again and doing well again, what it takes to really get that back. There is an answer. There's always an answer. We just don't think anyone really knows what that answer is, especially the people that are in charge of making decisions at the football club. And that's where I'm at the moment. I just feel like, this probably will turn out to be a really the wrong appointment. I think whether it was the right thing to do to change the manager at the time that we did or not is, again, now I think is irrelevant. Fact is they've done it, and okay, this one hasn't worked or isn't going to work likely. They've got to make a decision quick, and I think that win at Newcastle has bought Lopetegui time, because they would have expected him to lose that Arsenal game. But for me, it's the manner in which it was lost. Should have been writing on the wall, really, for me. But it won't be, because he got that 3 points at Newcastle.
That's weird, isn't it?
It will prolong it even more. But now we're going into a run of fixtures where they're all winnable games against teams that are in and around us. We've got what is it? Leicester away and Wolves at home next.
Yeah.
I mean, has to be 6 points. Has to be. Like it's not even. Oh, we'll get a draw at
We'll win
Leicester.
one and lose one, won't we?
Yeah, but with that, for me, that's not good enough. Like he has to win both. He has to. Otherwise, you get sucked into that bottom three, that bottom four. Like he has to win both, and if he doesn't, he's got to go. For me.
Right. Some of the reaction, James. I'll read the Instagram ones because they're a little bit more. They're a little bit less twittery.
Yeah.
You'll know what I mean. Justin Dory. This one made me laugh, and I replied, and then I was afterwards wasn't sure whether he was serious or not. Bit harsh. After going 4-0 down, we battled, and credit where credit's due. We stopped them from scoring in the second half. And let's be honest, the ref was against us. So when you have time to reflect tomorrow, it wasn't as bad as you make out. And I just replied and said, after going 4-0 down, doing quite a lot of heavy lifting there, mate. And it's like, after going 4-0 down, it's like, no, but the fact we went 4-0 down in the first half is a fairly in fact, that's probably the dominant point there. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, do you know that reminds me of when
just cut selective bits of games and go, well, that was all right.
Yeah, that reminds me of it's very similar to when when Arsenal Fan TV was in its pump, and you had one of their guys going, "Well, it was raining, so that's why we lost. Well, that's why we were 2-0 down." It's like, no, that's not how it works.
Yeah, it was raining for them as well.
Yeah. So I don't agree with that at all. There were good moments in the game, but not enough to warrant a good performance for me.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. And you're the king of saying it's a good performance when we get dicked by big teams as well, aren't you? Right, Mulligan's Irons. I'll say it again till I'm blue in the face. What is the West Ham way? Put it down in writing, then sign players and managers that can implement it. Sacking Julian doesn't help if we don't have a manager lined up to actually make use of the players we've got, which, to be fair, is what I was saying about Moyes. There is no, and has never been a steady direction of what it means to be West Ham since I can remember. Anyone screaming for Moyes to go and now screaming for Lopetegui to go, simply answer one question: what does West Ham stand for on the pitch, and who can implement it? Fairly reasonable point there, James. What do you think?
I like the idea of writing it down. Like we need a constitution,
like a constitution.
Exactly. We need a constitution.
None of this unwritten rubbish like the UK. Let's get it down and right like the Yanks.
Just a list of amendments. This is the club. This is what we follow.
Yeah. The right to bear arms wouldn't have been bad on Saturday.
Yeah, to be fair. Yeah. I do agree. I think, but the whole those that are shouting for Moyes to go and now shouting for Lopetegui to go, I think that there is a mixture of people that were shouting for him to go. There are ones that were blindly just going get rid of him now. It's disgrace, like it's rubbish. And there are ones that go and think he's probably come to the end of his time. I think we've taken as far as we can. So I think there is a mixture.
So you in that camp?
I was in that camp going, look, I love the man. Everyone knows I love the man. But I just felt like the second half of last season was evidence enough to think that
we're doing it again, mate. We're doing it again.
But that's it. But that's kind of I've had to explain that.
What Mulligans is saying there. Go on, sorry.
I've had to explain that again to back up my point. Going, there are people out there that felt like it was time for him to leave, but still love him, but then also now feel like this hasn't worked. And it's okay to feel like that. It's okay to be both, you know?
No, I get it. So, but on that point, that's I think what he's saying, isn't it? Right? Don't you think that? So if you're to write it down, like he's suggesting there, what would you write down? What it means to be West Ham? Like what do we want? But as in that's reality, not like, because I think a lot of people live in a bit of dreamland still, where it's like, play beautiful, expansive football with a team full of blokes who came through the academy and were born no further than Romford. Like, I do think there's a bit of that sometimes. Do you know what I mean? Where the Premier League now is played at such a high level that very few teams are developing young players and then they're Premier League ready, are they? We've done this conversation before as well, to be fair. So if you had to write down something for West Ham, what the West Ham constitution, what would it be?
We need a manager that is able to identify the qualities and the abilities of his squad and then play a tactical system to suit that. I don't think we're seeing that at the moment. That should be up there number one. We've got some very, very skillful some would say world-class footballers, but they're not being used in a system that suits their qualities and their abilities. I think we're seeing that. For me, that's definitely up there. Whether that's amendment number 1 or not, I don't know. But
it's that identity is what I think he's tapping into, isn't it? Like, what is
that's
the
kind
identity? What's the playing style? Like Brighton have got a template, and they find people to plug in the template, don't they? Managers,
and
whatever position.
But the thing is, having a playing style is fine, but then you need, if you have a specific playing style that you are known for as a manager, right?
Yeah, I know what you're going to say. Yeah,
then you need players that have the qualities and the abilities to play in the positions that allow for you to effectively play that playing style and win football matches with it. Lopetegui hasn't got those resources to play the way he wants to play.
Mate, to be fair, Todibo, Kilman, Soler, Rodriguez, all hit full Krug. I know he's not played, so it's unfair to bash him with that. Somerville.
None of those players are rubbish. None of those players are rubbish.
They're all his players, is what I mean. They weren't Moyes.
Yeah, but for some reason, that's not coming across. It's not working. Like, tactically, it's the wrong system for these players. Maybe you thought it was the right system, and it's not. It's clearly not. With 13 games into the Premier League season, and it's clearly not worked. So there is no identity.
No, quite. But what would you? Yeah, I don't know what you'd want it to be. Right, Dan McGuinness.
The thing is, I don't have a preference to how we play. Yes, I wanted to be a little bit more entertained at times under Moyes. Sometimes it was a bit like, this is difficult.
His system relies on winning, doesn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. But I don't go. I'm not like, it needs to be tiki taka and it needs to be Pep Guardiola style and it's got to be unbelievable. And we need to have 70% possession every week and I'm not like that. I want to be entertained, but I also understand that sometimes you have to win games by not being that entertaining. But I want there to be a balance. At times over the last 4 years, there wasn't really a balance at certain times.
And then when we were winning, it was fine. But when we weren't, it wasn't for most. That's a generalisation. Yeah. Right, Dan McGuinness. I can't understand how anyone watches that and comes out thinking we're missing Moyes. Of course, we'll point to last season's Arsenal home match for comparison, as it was even worse. I don't think we conceded 5 in the first half then. The defensive errors today are so frustrating to keep seeing. But if you take out a couple of them, away today, we're right in that match. Last season under Moyes, we were lining up for damage limitation before the first whistle and we still lose 6-0. Yeah, but we won away and beat them at home in the League Cup. But the defensive errors are so frustrating to see. But if you take a couple of them away, we're right in that match. But I don't that's selective thingy again, isn't it? What do you mean if you take them away? They happened. They're part of the match. Like you can't just like saying, if we weren't 4-0 down, we would have been all right. It's like, well, yeah.
I wonder whether he means the penalties. Definitely one of them. Very, very contentious. Take that away, it's 4-2. But even then, 4-2 sounds a little bit better than 5-2, doesn't it? But still pretty shambolic for me.
Yeah. Anyway, Dan went on to say, this content is getting so stale, using every defeat as an excuse to say sacking Moyes was a mistake. I'm so grateful for him, what he did. We had to get rid to progress. And despite our current form, that decision was not a mistake. It was always going to take time to transition and we have to bear with it. The first half of this season is no different to the second half of last. Love the podcast, but becoming very tough to listen to, constantly hearing that everything was perfect under Moyes. When it was arguably worse, it really is time to move on. Yeah, fair enough, Dan. Who else?
I agree. I agree with that second point, by the way. I agree with that.
What, the podcast getting stale?
No. The second half of his comment. I mean, it probably is getting stale. To be fair,
yeah. But to be fair, it is. Yeah,
but I do agree that transitions do take time. So maybe there should still be an element of patience. And I do also agree that this first half of this season is very, very similar as the second half of last season, which is why Moyes ended up going. So, no, it is what it is.
All right, I'll tell you what. Right, how about, James? This is my pledge, yeah? And this is because the podcast means a lot to me. You mean a lot to me, as do all of our listeners, okay? I'm going to pledge now that until, what's the date today? It's the 2nd of December, right? I'm not going to mention on the podcast once like I'm not going to hark back to David Moyes. I might mention his name in passing, but I'm no longer going to mention that I think sacking David Moyes was a mistake. I'm going to, for one last time, say that everyone does seem to be totally lost on the notion that if he'd have been backed properly and actually presented with a decent new contract at the end of December after we beat Arsenal away last season, rather than the one that he's openly said on the overlap recently, look it up if you didn't see it, that he said the contract wasn't that great, which made him a bit unsure and didn't make him feel particularly backed. I do think there is a world in which David Sullivan does something brave and goes, look, we're backing David again, 2-year deal, decent deal, please stay, David. Results can't carry on. Well, they weren't even bad when they offered him the new deal. We were brilliant. But, you know, we want to see a bit more progressive play, but you've done great things. Crack on. I do think there is a world where that could have happened. No one particularly wants to see that. But I pledge now to anyone listening or watching that I, Will Pugh, will not hark back to the David Moyes era between now and the end of January. How's that, James? That's 2 months. See if I can do it. Because otherwise I might have to just ditch a podcast. It's like dry January and dry December, but and we'll see. I will see how we get on. Because all I am going to be left with, I do worry about content wise. All I'm going to be left with is, well, Lopetegui's crap. I wish he wasn't our manager, and I don't know where the best way to go is. But that's my pledge. That is commitment to you and the podcast and the listeners.
Yeah, I'll
hold
you to that.
Bore people anymore.
Yeah, I'm holding you to that, mate.
Yeah, you're responsible for keeping me on my toes. Mike Penny says, I hope a new manager comes in and is given a couple of million in January to replace £40 million Kilman. People seem to be hating Kilman all of a sudden. I don't know. Who else? Right. Yes, Uncle Jim says, the issue is, should you have been playing better football under Moyes with the players you've got? Yes, you should have done. Have you progressed by getting rid of Moyes? No, you haven't. So, yeah, where do you go? But the answer is not in the past. You must always move forward. Next man it is, whoever it may be, hopefully for you, it's the right man. Look, I'm taking all the comments on board. Do us a favour, everyone. Follow us on social media, and I promise you'll get no more voice content from me if you do. It's We Are West Ham Pod on Instagram, at @WeAre_West Ham on Twitter. You can email us at wearewesthampod@gmail.com and subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. Just search We Are West Ham Podcast over there. And I promise I'm going to try and freshen up my points of reference for content, and no more harking back to the Moyes era. I'll just oppress those feelings and be sad about it all on my own. Stay with us. We'll do a bit more of a sort of a reaction to the Arsenal game next, and we'll also have an opposition view at the end of this podcast to look ahead to the quick turnaround game, Leicester City away this week, and we'll have Jake Watson, a friend of mine, old friend of the podcast from the Big Strong Leicester Boys podcast. We play Leicester on Tuesday night, so very quick turnaround indeed. Stay with us, keep in touch on the socials, and yeah, give me a chance to prove my commitment to not boring the pants off you all with I Love Moyes content. Right, James, it's a bit of a tricky one, right? To actually break down the game, 7 goals in the first half, couple of iffy decisions. I do think, performance aside, that we should at least focus on a couple of the bigger decisions that happened in the game. First of all, Gabriel's goal. Jurrien Timber just shoves Paqueta in the back at the front post, like blatantly shoves him in the back. If he hadn't have done that, Paqueta would have been able to jump and head the ball clear. I spoke to former Premier League referee Mark Halsey today. Go to my Twitter if you want to watch that video. And he was like, yeah, it's like, what's VAR there for? He just said it's a blatant free kick. I don't know how it's not been seen. Timber's coming out afterwards laughing, going, oh yeah, I can't talk to you about our dark arts. And it's like, it's nothing clever in that, mate. You just shoved your opponent in the back and it hasn't been spotted by the army of people with video cameras who are supposed to stop that. Thoughts?
Yeah, I agree. It should have been picked up, but I'm not too sure why anyone's surprised that it wasn't picked up. The VAR decision making is so consistently inconsistent that
Mm.
you know that will get picked up probably next weekend in a game, and it will likely affect a team nearer the bottom of the table negatively, because it's too inconsistent. But yeah, I agree. It should have been a foul. The whole Dark Arts thing that Timber said after, all he's done there is just prove that their Dark Arts is based around cheating and nothing else. Let's have it right though. It's right. You know, you can have Dark Arts that kind of bend the rules a little bit and a little bit cheeky.
Yeah.
And there's Dark Arts where it's just clearly trying to deceive the officials and be cheats.
But it's not even that. It's just like he's just committed a foul, hasn't he?
Yeah.
He just hasn't been caught like he should have been.
Yeah. Arsenal
players commit fouls, don't they?
Over the last few years, when they've gone from being a complete and utter circus, which was a great era, to being Premier League title challengers and Premier League title bottlers.
Yeah.
They have given themselves a reputation, developed a reputation for being cheats, and for just being like a lot of their players rolling around the floor every 5 minutes.
In their defence, James, they did have that reputation before.
Yeah, but it's heightened a lot because of their Dark Arts. Yeah, they've ramped it up. The players are moaning and crying and it's just ridiculous. But it works for them. It works for them, and I don't know. I just really, really buzzing at Liverpool having a great season, because it means it'll be a third year in a row that all these Dark Arts and this cheating will get them absolutely nothing. Buzzing for it.
You're pretty convinced of that then. Arsenal definitely won the title race.
Yeah. Liverpool are going to win the title. Yeah. Alex, do not clip that up and put it on social. I'll get enough stick as it is. Leave that. Do not put that on social, please.
I've literally just texted Alex and said 31 minutes for a social clip. Alex, get up immediately. That's quite the Arsenal fans will love that, mate. Bit of engagement.
Yeah, I won't if they go on and win it, to be fair, but they won't. Surely they won't. You've actually done it as well. I've just looked at WhatsApp. You've actually done it. I can't believe it.
I genuinely thought you'd seen that and responded to it live. But no, I think that's a great social clip. Only because we need to do something for the We Are West Ham PR machine, mate. Because thanks to me, it's been just taking an absolute battering over the last 48 hours or so. People absolutely hating the content I put out. So I feel like a video of you just slagging off Arsenal is going to do us a big favour, to be honest.
Yeah, it works.
Might hook a few West Ham fans back in.
Yeah, maybe. Go on in, Alex. Go on, do it.
yeah, thanks. Yeah, you could be the antidote to the Will Pugh syndrome who's plaguing this podcast. Right, that was the first one. Bukayo Saka goes down under challenge of Lucas Paqueta. Clear contact, fine, yeah, but classic that he hits the floor about a second and a half after the contact, and he actually hits the floor as he goes down. His body like dives in a different direction to the one he was traveling when Paqueta hit him.
Yeah. But it's Dark Arts, Will. That's how they do it.
Sorry, mate.
Sorry. How they do it.
I forgot it was Dark Arts. What was the other one I was going to talk to you about? Oh yeah, they were Arsenal fans crying because Declan Rice's tackle on Lucas Paqueta, that Emerson got the free kick that he scored from, belt of a free kick, by the way, that he got the ball 100%. And quite frankly, I couldn't agree with them more. He couldn't have got the ball more if he tried, but Paqueta just did a pirouette and jumped on the floor. Maybe Arsenal will sign him next season.
In maybe in other circumstances, I would be bothered and I would care, but I
don't. Gabriel received what you'd have thought, judging by his reaction on the ground, was a punch from prime Mike Tyson to literally the middle of his nose. But I actually watched it back, and it turns out that in the course of going for a normal header, Lucas Fabianski's glove just brushed the side of his face. Thoughts? Dark Arts.
Dark Arts. Yeah, I mean, Gabriel was one of the biggest culprits of all these Dark Arts and all these. He's a big bloke. He's a big boy, right? He's a big old boy. And if you go back and watch a lot of their games. The amount of times that bloke spends on the floor crying and moaning that he's been hurt. He's hurt his face. He's hurt his leg. Oh, my ankle hurts. Mate, you're a fully grown, 6 foot, God knows what bloke. And you're constantly on the floor complaining and moaning and crying. It baffles me that these men can get up in the morning, look themselves in the mirror and call themselves men. It is woeful. Terrible, terrible behaviour. I just don't understand. Like, if you're genuinely hurt, that's absolutely fine. But he hasn't hurt himself there. There's all he's doing is trying to use his dark arts to get a penalty. And again, it works. Breaks my heart that fully grown men in any day and age really can feel like behaving like that's acceptable and then still be able to look themselves in the mirror. I feel like I'm channeling like my inner Roy Keane here at the moment.
It does feel a little bit like that, yeah. What is that? No, are we not in the toxic masculinity era now? Of like, you know, you can't look in himself in the mirror and call himself a man, or is that you've made an exception on that by the occasion? I feel like you're a fairly liberal, open-minded sort of bloke, mate. I thought that was a bit too 1997, that sort of statement.
Yeah, but these guys all go around thinking they're big boys and like hard man look, big hard man centre half. Shouldn't be going down like that. Even if you're not, like, you can't tell me you've hurt yourself when you've barely been touched. Stop behaving like you have been hurt. In what world, in what industry or sport is it acceptable to pretend that you've hurt yourself and it look okay and be acceptable behaviour? I don't understand. Why would you do it?
No, quite, James, quite. Yeah, I will give you that one. Other than that, I mean, do you want to talk about any of the goals? It did feel just like the game was sort of taken away from us a bit, mainly by ourselves being rubbish, then the referees as well. It's just like as if they needed any more help. It's like, look, we're already playing terribly this season. We're already going to get thrashed here. Like, come on, Anthony. Like, Anthony Taylor, like, do us a favour. Do you know what I mean? But it's just, yeah, I don't know. It was, I haven't felt that bad after a game for ages, mate. It was just everything. But while we're on the topic then, Jonesy, what do you make of all this stuff? Like the Arsenal fans, there was loads of them, mate. Like, you might have seen 1 or 2 videos. I was in your seats. Thanks to you, of course. Sat there with your brother and all your mates. Your brother, I think, was probably up there with an Ollie Jones world record departure from a stadium. I think it was about 26 minutes ish that he left.
That's nowhere near world record. He left once after, I think, 1 minute and 30 seconds. A few seasons back against Leicester, they scored literally we were walking down to our seat, got to our seat, looked up, Jamie Vardy scored, he turned around and walked back out. But yeah, he did text me and said, there was loads of us, we've already left, Will's still there, I feel really bad. So yeah.
No, he did text me and say sorry, but I gave it till 75 in the end. So anyway, what I was going to say is loads of Arsenal fans in the home end. I was in your seats, which, down towards the Trevor Brooking end of the Billy Bond stand, lower tier. My normal seats are the other corner, basically on the Billy Bond side, towards the corner flag of the Bobby Moore stand end. Right, both on the sides we sit on upper tier. Now I could see the one which I think most people is the video most people have seen on social media, right up the other end, in the Bobby Moore lower. And it looked like a couple of the Arsenal fans like took a bit of a hiding as they were sort of ousted in the home end. There were 2 Arsenal fans 7 or 8 rows in front of where your seats normally are. Yeah. And I think everyone around them was just a bit like, look, just go, get out of here. Wasn't a great appetite from them at first, but then there wasn't like the level of violence seen from West Ham fans as they eventually got ushered out by stewards. And I always feel a bit bad for the stewards because it's like, get them out, everyone's saying. And then you got stewards probably getting like, £6.50 an hour or whatever the minimum wage is to sort of like get involved in a pretty like sort of tense situation. But then there was just pockets of this all over the ground. What do you make of that? Because I just think and me and you, to be fair, we've sat in a home end at Tottenham, and you did a terrible job of disguising how happy you were when Jared Bowen scored in the League Cup game. And I was like, come on. You literally, you put your head down between your legs under your seat and were shuddering with joy. But so, look, we've done it. I've done it. I've done it at Arsenal in the home end. I've done it at Man United in the home. And when West Ham are playing, me and you have done it at Tottenham. So we've done it before. I don't know. What do you think? But obviously, we've never sort of been caught out, or
Well, there's two things to this. Firstly, the club need to have a look at that, because you might get every single game. You get a few who have been offered a ticket by a mate and they've gone along with friends or something, and they support the other team, and they're told by their mates, just keep it down, don't say anything. We're not going to tell anyone, obviously, but
my dad did that the weekend. Gave his best mate, who's an Arsenal fan, a ticket, and he sat in a home end.
And that's fine, and everything's respectful, and
yeah, he's 60, so
yeah, it's different. Yeah, in how they've allowed so many Arsenal fans to be able to buy tickets on the open market, because I'm assuming that's what's happened. You don't get that many mates that get offered tickets and then cause trouble as well. So they've been able to buy tickets on the open market in the home end. For me, like, that needs to be looked at and stopped. It's not the first time it's happened, by the way. And
how do you prove it, though, mate? If you're the club, because I get where you're coming from. Because there was actually a guy. I was having a drink with my dad before in the concourse. There was a guy in the home concourse with a full Arsenal shirt on. Like, I've not seen that before.
Why hasn't he been kicked out?
I don't know if that happened. I just sort of, like, one of my dad's mates saw it on the way back from the toilet. I didn't see it with my own eyes, but he said there was literally a bloke with a full. So he may have been. This was before the game. But so if you're the club, fair enough. But, like, how do you stop it? Because, like, how do you prove you don't support Arsenal? If Joe Bloggs from North London wants, you used to live in Boreham Wood, I live in South London now.
Well,
how do you prove it? How do you stop it?
I don't know, but this doesn't happen at other football clubs.
But it must do.
Not at that scale.
Especially the Big Six, they're full of tourists, aren't they? There was the Americans in the Man United end. I remember seeing that in full Liverpool kits once. I don't know. How do you stop it?
The other side is, what on earth are you thinking? Okay, you've managed to nab a ticket in the home end. What on earth are you thinking kicking off or making it very well known that you support the other team, especially when it's a big London derby and Arsenal, because of the way they've behaved over the last couple of years, have become one of the most hated clubs in the country. No one likes Arsenal anymore. And you've gone into the home end in a London derby and you're quite clearly giving it the big one. What do you expect is going to happen?
Do you think I it's a weird one. I'm inclined to agree. It's not. I do think. Do you think, though, that there is an element of, because this is all I can imagine, because I'm sort of inclined to agree, and then I'm like, how did that happen? Do you think they are real football tourists, as in similar to how me and you would do, right? I don't know about you, but I've been to Barcelona and I've been to a Barcelona game. I haven't gone and sat there in my Espanyol shirt cheering when Espanyol scored, but I've gone to a Barcelona game just to be at a Barcelona game with no vested interest in who wins, just to enjoy the experience. I've sat in a Boca Juniors away end at Copa Libertadores game in Uruguay. I've gone and done these things for the experience, and I've been the tourist, right? All over the place. Do you think it is just someone who is literally, I've also been to like NFL games in America and stuff that you just do for the experience. Do you think it's just like holiday makers who have gone, oh, we'll see a Premier League game while we're in London. Oh, West Ham are playing Arsenal. Arsenal are a big team. Great, let's buy tickets. And then just like, I like Arsenal. And then just not understood the culture. Because it does seem, I can't see that anyone would do that on purpose. Because if you knew about the culture, I don't think you'd have to have pretty lacking in brain power to walk into the Bobby Moore lower and cheer when Arsenal score. Do you know what I mean?
Maybe. I just don't know. Judging by the videos that I've seen, for me, that doesn't look like it's an honest tourist. Because if you're a tourist and you've done it, and immediately you realise, oh, that was a mistake. you probably hold your hands up and go, all right, sorry, I'm out. But the fact there's fights going on from either side tells me that maybe one or two of those incidents at the ground on Saturday were people with not a great deal of brain power. And that wouldn't surprise me, to be fair. It genuinely wouldn't surprise me. I don't particularly agree with the violent way it's dealt with, but I can understand fans' frustration. I mean, if ever I see, and I've seen it loads of times, if ever I see a fan from another club sitting near me or I spot one, my immediate reaction is, what on earth is he doing here? I'm going to go and punch him in the face.
You say, is that?
What?
What did you say? That's my immediate reaction?
No, my immediate reaction isn't what.
I thought you were just casually admitting that that's what you do.
No.
If it's me, I'll just go and whack him in the face. But
yeah, no, it isn't that.
Right.
But you're at the same time going, they shouldn't be here. But if they keep their head down, it's not really going to affect my day. But some people see it differently. Some people get angry when they see fans of other clubs in home ends, and if that's the way you are, then that's fine. But the fact is, it's the moment they start giving it the big head and start kicking off. For me, every right to get what's coming to you, in my book.
Yeah, that might be. It might be a step too far, really. I just think, especially because there's got to be an element of understanding. An element of lack of understanding. Like the fellas in front of us, I couldn't tell you. Like if I had a tenner to put it on whether they knew what was going on or they were generally just confused, I couldn't tell you. Like they did look a bit like, oh, what? What do you mean? What do you mean I have to go? Like, and they looked a bit sort of despondent about the whole thing. Not like, oh yeah, we've got away with one, we better get out of here. What the answer is, James, don't you? And I'm not suggesting this, by the way, let it be known. I'm not suggesting this is the answer or that I would like this, but the answer is a neutral zone, isn't it? Like that is the answer. If you're West Ham, like they know that they'll say, I don't want it. I would hate it. I think Fulham are a laughing stock. But if it was a choice between that and, all right, you've got 2,000 people sat in the Trevor Brook and Upper in the nosebleed seats, but they're charged 100 quid each for the privilege or whatever. Is that better than, and then, all right, the home end is reduced technically. Is that the answer? I'm not saying it is. I'm just sort of.
I suppose if you limit it to 200 seats at premium prices,
you'd have to do 1,000, wouldn't you? Surely.
No. Limit it to 200 seats at premium price and stick them up in the gods. Done.
Blimey, James is very much in the punch him in the head camp, but don't let him in.
No, I'd rather. I don't want to see any violence at football. I think it's ridiculous. But sometimes people ask for it.
It's more just like it ruins the experience for the home fans, and sometimes you just have to go to the majority, don't you? It's like everyone's gone to football in England for years with a home end and an away end. People enjoy that. That's what they like. Like people don't want to go to football and sit alongside fans from the other team. It's not like it's not like rugby, is it? This is like proper football with proper fans, proper sport with proper fans. Leicester away Tuesday night. Thoughts, feelings, emotions.
First, I quickly want to just go back and question your dig at rugby there. Before the Leicester bit, did not appreciate that. Great sport, great fans. Moving on.
Ex Woodford prop James Jones.
Not a prop, mate.
Prop.
Not a prop. Definitely not a prop. Moving on to Leicester. Well, I said earlier, no, got to win. My just concern is that they're Net Van Nistelrooy's first game.
New manager boost.
I don't know. He's got to win, and I don't think he will win. I think because of that new manager boost, I think they're going to be up for it. Jamie Vardy loves a goal against us as well, doesn't he? So that's going to be a laugh. I've unfortunately, I was very positive after the Newcastle game. Really felt like, yeah, maybe this is it. And the Arsenal games just throw me back to where I was before. I just don't see it. Just don't see it at all. But then I didn't see anything coming from the Newcastle game. Look what we did. So you just don't know at the moment, do you?
That feels like flash in the pan, doesn't it? You know, where that just feels like the exception to the rule. Do you know what I mean?
Maybe. I think it all rests on what happens in the Leicester game. Because if there's a performance and a result there, is it the Arsenal game that's the flash in the pan?
Well, so anything but 2 wins he goes, 2 defeats he goes, surely.
Yeah, I think he probably stays if we get a point at Leicester and beat Wolves.
Yeah, but that's not the worst return.
No, I am a big fan of the whole respect the away point. And let's have it right. Regardless of the manner of the defeat, we've got 3 more points than we expected over the last 2 games. I think we both expected to lose those 2 games. We expected to lose to Arsenal. Obviously, we didn't think it'd be that bad, but so maybe 4 points over the next 2, and he clings on. 2 defeats, he's gone. I think a win and a defeat, it would depend on the manner of both. If it's a terrible defeat and then a lucky, scrappy 1-0 win against either of them, then I think there's still question marks over whether he should stay or not. So there's a lot riding on it. There's a lot up in the air. I think there's a lot of variations to what could and can't be done. I read earlier today that they are going to give him until the end of the year, regardless. I think that's a mistake. The table's very tight at the moment, and there is a bit of a cushion between us and the bottom 5. But the bottom 5 does also include Leicester and Wolves, who we play next. so that cushion could disappear over the next 5-6 days. So got to win.
Yeah, pretty much. 2 defeats he goes for me. Like, as in, he should. You can't. If you can't beat Leicester and Wolves, or win against one of those, he's got to go. Sure. I don't know where we would go from here, but that's a conversation for another day, I think. Hope you enjoyed the podcast this week. Hope we didn't bore the pants off you. And by we, I'm unfairly grouping James Jones into that. Hope I didn't bore the pants off of you. You remember my Moyes pledge. Oh, just quickly, James, I'd just like to give a shout out. I nearly forgot then. To, and he'll forgive me for not being able to talk for a little bit longer. But Paul, West Ham fan, I met him down under on the pre-season tour of Perth. Went and had a chat with him. Then he's been spending some time back in the UK, and he came up to me in the secret pub that we go to before the West Ham games. Came up and said hello. Had a chat for 5 minutes. He's on the way back to Australia, maybe now, I think. So he may get this podcast while he's flying, or he may not. But he came up in the pub, said hello. We had a chat for 5 or 10 minutes, just chatting about all things West Ham. He said some really great things about the pod, which is lovely. So just shout out to Paul there on his way back to Australia. James, I did have one more message as well, right? I just want to read out to you to sign off. This is just a reminder to follow us on social media. We are West Ham Pod on Instagram, at @WeAre_West Ham on Twitter. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, We Are West Ham Podcast, and send us an email if you want at wearewesthampod@gmail.com. Shout out to Jim, who does that most weeks. This is from Sam Waters. He messaged the podcast DMs on Instagram, James. All right, lads, hope you both well. I was up at 6:30 a.m. feeding my newborn, watching that dismal performance. I believe, let me just double check, but I believe, Sam is a Kiwi. So a listener from down under again. I think New Zealand counts as down under, doesn't it? It's at the bottom of the planet, so I'm pretty sure that does.
I think Kiwis would take exception. I don't think they like to be associated with Australia. Absolutely not.
No.
My
But
brother-in-law's a Kiwi, so I don't think it's
all right. Down under region. There you go. Yes, there you go. The term down under is a colloquialism, refers to Australia and New Zealand. It comes from the fact that both countries are located in the southern hemisphere, below many other countries on the globe. There you go. That was Google AI that told me that. So anyway, Sam continues and says, Lopetegui, I don't like him call him Loppy, as if they're mates. Lopetegui subbing out Paqueta and Somerville for Alvarez and Rodriguez surely shows that at that point he had no intent to try and claw something back, despite a few players having decent attempts. He was purely reactive once again. Sam's got a point there. His in-game management subs are weird sometimes. It's so hard to watch when it looks like he has no idea what he's doing week in, week out. He said, I also want to say that he said, no, following on from a couple of the other messages we've read out from listeners for whom the podcast means a lot. I just want to say that my wife lost 4.5 litres of blood in childbirth, spent the first 4 days and my son spent the first 4 days of his life in the ICU, intensive care. So definitely not the easiest start to fatherhood, but both doing well now. And listening to you guys talk about West Ham is a real highlight of my week and takes my mind off of things. Football, and in particular, the fact that West Ham aren't big here. So it's something I really look forward to. Love your work, guys. Thanks very much, Sam. Nice to hear a few fans amid all the bit of a bashing I've taken over the last 48 hours. But very nice thoughts indeed, James.
Yeah, lovely. I'm glad that wife and son are doing well as well after that. Can't have been good. I mean, I'd have not similar, but I had a quite a difficult start to fatherhood as well. Yeah. Bit of a brutal experience, but we're all good now, and I'm glad they're all good as well. So yeah, really nice.
Absolutely, yeah. Thanks for listening, everyone. Stick with us. We'll do our best to try and make it a bit more uplifting, but it is quite difficult when we're both feeling so rubbish and the football is just so pants. But thanks for listening, everyone. Keep plugging away. Keep getting involved in the DMs and the comments on social media. I'll say it until I'm blue in the face. West Ham are still massive. Up the Hammers. Leicester away Tuesday night, and we'll speak to you next week.